and then doing a podcast about essentially Jesus. I do it with a Catholic priest who knows basically everything. The guy's a super PhD and probably got like 6 more that I don't even know about. But so he knows all the ins and outs of every faith-based question I could have. But at the end of the day, what really kind of presses to me in the way that this is applicable to everyone and not just business owners or managers or anything like that, but ultimately, if you want to have a successful business, it's going to boil down to the relationships that you create, whether it be between people within your own company and your employees, whether it be between you and your customers, you and your clients, whatever is applicable to you. It all really comes down to that. And people have this notion inside them that I can be one way with one group of people and another way with everyone else. And the reality is we're not capable of doing that. Your brain is not good enough, not you as an individual, but you as a human. So we're not wired to be able to do that. We are, if you're exercising one strength in one facet of your life, it'll come through in another area. If you're pulling yourself down with weakness in one facet of your life, it'll pull yourself down in another area. So that is just something that I like to start with because it's a natural kind of thing that everyone has had a relationship with their life. I mean, we all have that in every capacity. And when you look at business through that perspective, it really does change the way that you operate your business, hopefully, and hopefully we'll open it up into a more profitable outcome.
Absolutely. I really truly believe that what you said was so true. I believe whoever you are, wherever you go, you're going to show up. And your true, genuine self is always going to show up no matter what you try to portray. The real you is going to show up either in business or personal. The real you is going to show up. And how do we do that and stay authentic?
Yeah. So this is counterintuitive to the way that most people are taught to grow up through the business chain. The way to be successful is actually rooted in humility. Most people think that the way I'm going to get noticed and climb up a corporate ladder is I'm going to show everyone how great I am, make myself stand out and all that, which does not work in the long run. And if you're in a company where that's the way that promotions are being done, you may want to consider leaving it because in the long run, you can't be successful that way. And I know that there's a big cluster of the top CEOs or whatever that disagree with that, but at the end of the day, they're wrong. They themselves might be in a large enough place where you can hide the fact that you're not humble through the rest of your corporate culture. But the way to truly grow and to grow everything does start with humility. I mean, it has to start with the fact that you get your success as a team, but yet you have to be individually accountable if something goes wrong. And you can see with basically any successful athlete out there, because they're the ones who always have microphones, it's easier to identify them. When things are going well, I think Peyton Manning's the best example of this ever. When things are going well, it's always we. It's always him and his receivers, him and his offense, him and whatever. When things go wrong, it's on him. And I think that's what I'm talking about when we say about the humility, to recognize that you're not here by yourself. Before we even get into all of the religion element that someone had to create you in the first place, just from you as an agnostic corporate place, you're only here because someone wants to hire you or buy your product. So you're only having customers and clients and inevitably employees because they want to be there. And treating it with the act of humility has so much great benefit that is really unmeasurable once you start teeing it up, even though it's contrary to counterintuitive to every thought you have about how you climb a corporate ladder, and also counterintuitive to how you market yourself and people market themselves in general.
Absolutely. Hey, I just want to say you gave a shout out to Peyton Manning, and we are Colts fans because we are Indiana.
There you go.
So I just want to say woo woo! Shout out to the Colts and Peyton Manning for winning us the Super Bowl, and we got to host it. So that's just great. We're winners over here. So yeah, I just wanted to plug that real quick.
Well, like I said, I don't think it's someone who's ever had more microphones in front of him and him done well. I don't think I can come up with a better example than Peyton.
Mhm.
I mean, I've seen a lot of public figures, a lot of politicians flat out fail all the time, but Peyton doesn't, and he's
Mhm.
basically just a regular dude at the end of the day. So
Absolutely.
I
And
always
he's
love that
very
about him.
humble. You're absolutely right. He is
Yeah,
very, very humble. So
yeah.
yeah. And I think you're right. Humility says a lot about you. And I believe in the company culture, I was always taught that in order to be successful, you have to promote others and you have to put others before you. And if you're always tooting your own horn, you're not showing really humility in that aspect, anyways. And so if you're only trying to show how good you are, it's not giving support to others. So what you're saying is very true.
Yeah, it also erodes their desire to help you in the next situation, whatever that may be. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean you deny your skills or anything like that. You still have a duty, both professionally as an individual, to make yourself better in whatever strengths you have. I personally lean on the side that it's better to make your strengths stronger than your weaknesses stronger. An argument can be made for both sides, but I personally believe it's best to have really high peaks in your skill set rather than trying to have no valleys, because no
Absolutely.
one is valleyless. So the more peaks you can have, the more useful you can be in, granted, isolated situations. But if that skill set is more universal and you're very good at it, you then are as universal as your skill set.
Absolutely. I remember when I started out, and I knew that my journey was to help people and go into coaching. And I wanted to definitely keep God in that and allow Him to lead me on this journey. And I had a mentor that told me that if I wanted to be successful, I needed to remove God out of
Mm.
my business. And I was torn, and I just was like, I shut it down. I can't do this. If I can't have God leading me in this, then I don't want to do it. And it took me 6 years to decide that this is what I needed to do. And I fought and I wrestled with it because my faith was more important to me than the business was. And so I had to understand how to lead with that and how to lead with purpose. And so can you talk about how important it is to be able to incorporate your faith in your business and how the two work hand in hand?
Sure. If you really want to break it down, I mean, that's something that many people have been told. And the bigger the business, the more that thought comes across. And it comes across from mostly lawyers and marketing people that say we don't want to discourage X amount of people by doing this. That's why you um, often will hear about people who don't want to take sides with political stances. Why would I instantly want to alienate half of the country just because I said one thing or another? So that's a very real thing about why people would say that about God. But if you look at the way that most companies are structured, they actually are using the virtues that God teaches you to do anyway. So at the end of the day, there's seven main ones, right? There's prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, faith, hope, and love. So prudence essentially is making yourself better at what you're doing. What I just said about making your strengths better, learning more, getting open to new ideas, open to just becoming better at the end of the day. Um, and then the way that justice would be applicable is, you treat people fairly. You treat your employees fairly. You don't try to do high pressure sales on people. You don't try to force people into stuff. And that's basically at the end of the day how justice would be applied. A fortitude is when something comes in your head and you don't know how to say it, you just get it out. A thought comes in your mind, you're not sure why it's there. Figure out a way to say it. I mean, almost always it will make the situation better. And sometimes making the situation better is ending the situation. Um, that's real. I mean, sometimes you just need to fire a client, and that's very important. Um, Temperance kind of goes off of what I was saying with the humility, knowing that you're not the most important person in here, knowing that your individual wants and needs are not better than the group as a whole. So just looking at those four right there, you can see how all of those are very beneficial for an individual and a business to carry through, and they're directly taken from the Gospels. So at the end of the day, can't really get much more religion than that than being taken from the Gospels. So
You're absolutely right. And I think about it when I think about real estate, I think it goes hand in hand with the gospel as well.
Yeah.
I think about buying a field.
Yeah, there's some similarities sometimes, for sure. And what we have done in our world of this is different than what a lot of people do overall. I am not your standard landlord, and I don't want to be. I actually spent 5 years dealing with lawyers and figuring out how legally I can be more than just the standard landlord. And the reason I didn't want to be was, in general, places that become landlord neighborhoods for a long period of time go downhill. That means something that different to everyone else, but you all know what I'm trying to say. So what we wanted to do was be able to make more areas where the actual people living there cared about there. And the way that's done is in our society is home ownership. So with each individual I have them on a path of them owning the house inevitably. Sometimes it works better than others. Some of them, don't follow through like they say they will, and keeping your word is what it is. Some people do it, some people don't. But at the end of the day, we put people in a situation where the property is theirs. And it's going to be theirs. It's just, do we need to play semantics about when it officially becomes yours down the road, or do we start treating it like that now? And I tell all of my clients, yes, we are signing a lease. So I am your landlord by all technicality. But in reality, this is a buyer-seller relationship. When you own the house and something leaks or whatever, you're not going to call your bank and demand them to come fix it. You're going to go figure out how to take care of it yourself. So putting people and treating them as if they already have it is kind of our starting point. And we do this all in the neighborhoods that are, maybe they're going to be rentals in 10 years. Maybe it's going to be a home ownership area in 10 years. It's kind of on that gray area. And that's where I play at, is in that gray area. So they're all single family houses so that the people can take them over. And I tell them up front, you can paint your girl's room Barbie pink. You can make the kitchen however you want to do, whatever you want. But at the same time, you're responsible for plowing all the snow. You're responsible for cutting all the grass and all the maintenance in between. And the only time you're ever going to see me again is either if I evict you or if we sign the deed. And for everyone involved, starting with them in the first place, they don't get micromanaged. They get treated as if the house is theirs again. So not every tenant out there, in fact, most of them do not want this type of relationship. They don't want it. They want to be able to destroy it, leave, destroy somewhere else, move on, without any real ramifications or any real commitment. But I have found there's a great deal of people who do want this, and they tend to fall into one of two categories. It's either they had no idea how a credit card worked when they were in college and their credit got destroyed and they haven't figured out how to catch up. Or B, their divorce attorney told them to kill their credit out of spite. Either way, you have people who want to own a house. They just don't have the credit score, essentially. And we had to spend 5 years of figuring out how to legally build this program and how to make the banks like it so that they will give the loans on the back end. So fast forward all of that. We started that process in 2007-ish. And we've had a lot of great results going through it. It's estimated in Pennsylvania, which is one of the worst states that happened with COVID, that 40% of tenants stopped paying altogether. I had 3% stop paying.
Wow.
So it's the difference between being invested in what you want to do and where you want to go versus not. So I say this out here like, okay, Joe, you're running a landlord business. I'm selling donuts. How do I do that to my business? What's the cross applicableness? And the reality is put more ownership on your clients. Most people are very afraid to do that, because if I'm asking my clients to do something different and the other guy down the street isn't, well, why would they pick them? And the reality is when you put something on your client's plate, you actually are strengthening that relationship between you and them. And it builds the repeat element of the clients much more than just having a equal or slightly superior product than your competition does. So bringing them in and making them a part of, by just giving them a little bit more responsibility than the other vendors do really does make things a lot better for you and for the long term overall.
Absolutely. I understood everything you spoke to just then because in 2008, we had, well, actually in 2003, we purchased our home and we had an adjustable rate. We were young starting out and we had no clue what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2008, that rate adjusted, the market crashed, everything went crazy. Our mortgage tripled.
Mm-hmm.
It was outrageous. We lost our house. We were devastated. We didn't know what to do. And at the time, if we knew things that we know now, we would have done things differently. But we didn't. And everything that you just spoke to at that time, I was just like, I wish there was a program like you're talking about then. And I told my husband, I said, I wish that we could create something like that. And it was so funny because we have been, and that's why my husband wanted to listen today because we've been actually working on something like that. And we never heard of anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to you today, you are the first person I have ever heard speak of something like that. And I know so well about it because we went through it. And I'm like, if someone offer something like that, because everybody isn't bad and out there just looking to, like you said, destroy homes and just leave them. There are real honest people that have been put in situations that they didn't know. Nobody told us. We tried to figure this thing out on our own. And so this is great that you are doing this because there are people out there that need this opportunity to be able to be in the driver's seat and have the chance to be homeowners and get this opportunity. So how long does it take to be able to sign the deed and to go from leasing to owning?
So with every tenant that we have, we start with what's called an option to buy. Now, I need to preface this. There are 4 states that are legally harder to be a landlord in than Pennsylvania. They are the 4 you probably can guess right off the top of your head. It is New York, California, and Oregon. So at the end of the day, it is not exactly easy to loot these loopholes. And in your particular state, it will probably be a little bit easier. However, a lot of the things I had to play with were actually the congressional banking laws that made this play. But nonetheless, what we do is we have each of the tenants sign 2 separate agreements. The first is a 6-month option that then becomes a month-to-month option or a month-to-month lease thereafter. That's the lease. 6 months becomes that. The other is the option to actually buy the house. That has the purchase price they will be buying it for, the amount that they get in non-refundable payment towards the purchase. So for me, I make that number that it's big enough that they care, but small enough that the market actually will find someone who can do this. So a nice little balancing act of the local economy at the time. I always do a month on the first option. Very rarely does anyone actually fulfill it on the first option. But during that time, I use this company called Koozie. They then have since been bought by apartments.com, and it actually will report their payment to Experian or TransUnion, one or the other. Either way, the core concept is it's the same as when they pay their credit card. Because most people, when they pay a lease, the credit agencies have no idea that it actually happens. So them getting this extra payment on something they have to do anyway, because you have to live somewhere, they're actually getting help with their credit score. And there's also specific guys who just run credit repair businesses that we refer them to. But at the end of the day, it's a passive effect on something that you were doing anyway that helps you get your credit better. Again, it's not going to turn you from a 500 to an 800 overnight, but it's going to make it better. So that's what we do. We pair them with it. And then at the end of the first year, when the lease is done, we essentially have the conversation. Do you want to buy this house inevitably? Do you want to say, okay, this is a good idea, we're out, or where are we at here? The only time people are normally out is if I kick them out, or it's a situation where it was now a single mother and she wants to move in with a new guy, which is also understandable. That's part of life. I'm running the house here. I can't be upset about that. So that's what we do. And then then at the end of that first 12 months, we then look at what is the house worth now? Like if the house almost always goes up in value. So you raise it to what the new market rate is, and then each landlord can then determine how they want to do their price structure. For me, I typically do another 18 months for $500. So I give them a choice. We can either do the exact same one you just did and pay the big money again, which normally is not the right choice, or we pay a little bit more when you buy the house, which probably cost you $7 on your mortgage when it actually comes to fro, and you give me $500 now. So almost everyone takes the second choice, and it's because I'm not trying to make money on that second time. I'm basically trying to get the contract in place so when we go to the bank and say, we're agreed upon, this is what they're buying it for, this is now going to be the date of the closing. And once the bank says that, it's great. A key part of it is they do have to be on a month-to-month lease at that point. That gets into some deep banking rules that some are cool with and some aren't. The month-to-month thing avoids it all in all that capacity. So that's how in a very broad nutshell of 5 years of planning this process and 3 to 4 years, wherever we're at now, of executing it, how we've gotten here and what it actually does.
Wow, that's amazing. So what does the success rate of home ownership look like for you right now?
You mean as far as them following up the contract?
Yeah.
Well, they all do it eventually. It's just a question of how long does it take.
Okay.
Like I said, I've only had 3 of them that didn't follow through up on it because I had to get rid of them.
Okay.
We do have. I don't count the women who want to move into the new guy because to me that's not a failure of the system. That's just them changing their life.
Yeah.
Because we do kind of catch people at a pivot point when they're going through a divorce. And, for anyone who's done that, their life is in chaos. Moving itself is already crazy enough. I mean, changing your house is a pivot point, but you put divorce on top of it. Sometimes things don't go exactly the way you planned. And I get that. But at the end of the day, it does go through sometimes. With those women too, where the guy moves in, it's just more common the opposite direction.
All right. So how do you market this business? Like, how do you find your clients that you get to get into these houses?
I use Facebook and Craigslist. I don't do anything special.
Okay.
I don't need to. Normally, by the time I put something on Facebook, it's done in like a week. So every single one of my properties that I do that is different than everyone else. I do a video walkthrough of them because to me, the biggest waste of time is showing properties to people who don't want them. Because you just know immediately if a house is not right for you for whatever reasons that you can't get in pictures or from a description, but you can get with a video walkthrough, someone walking through a house. So I do that every time. I mean, with my iPhone, I can do whatever I want. I don't get why everyone doesn't do this. Is the baffling part to me. It takes me, I don't know, 12 minutes to walk through the house. That counts me turning all the lights on beforehand and turn them all off after and relocking up the house. Maybe an hour of editing the thing and doing a voiceover. So they do hear my voice watching these videos of me articulating the property. And I look at it as, of course I should do that because it's not complicated. And I get to sell the house as they're watching it. So what happens is people who end up wanting this house, they watch it, they send it to everyone who's going to be eventually living in the house. And then if they have other decision makers in their lives, which some do, some don't, they send it to their mom, they send it to dad, whatever, and they let them watch it. And then by the time they're actually doing a physical walkthrough for the first time, it's going to be like the 10th time they've seen this house. They know if they want it or not. And it's basically confirming it or it isn't. So that is the main thing that I do to eliminate wasted time. Is I looked at every single thing in our business that wasn't profitable, and we figured out how to streamline it. And the least profitable thing you do is waste time on someone who's not going to be a client. So YouTube doesn't care how many times the video gets shown to people who don't want it. So why should I?
Absolutely. All right. So what are your plans for the future with this business? Where do you see it going?
Well, I mean, right now it's in an absolutely great spot. We survived COVID, which many didn't. We have the capacity of knowing that the majority of landlords that didn't survive COVID have now just a ton of properties available, and they themselves don't want to buy anymore because they just got burnt. So you have lack of will to buy the properties, let alone the fact that haven't been paid forever. So there's a lack of capital. And this is what's going to ripple across this country. And it's going to happen worse in the place that we're shut down harder. So double edge of that silver lining of us being shut down forever in Pennsylvania is that I'm going to be able to buy 5 houses for the price of 2. Wow. So it's going to be nice, but for all the tenants who chose not to pay, there's no properties to put them, and there's going to be basic supply and demand. Lots of people get kicked out, nowhere to put them. Rents are going to skyrocket. They're going to hate all the tenants, or all the landlords will be hated on forever. But we just did what you forced us to do. If you would have just let us evict everyone when we were supposed to, it's a simple system. We evict someone in May, we fix the house up in June, and then new tenants come in July. It works. It does not work when you can't evict someone for 18 months and then all of those houses are broken at the same time. That's the breaking point of the string. So that's the inevitable part. That is what all of these governors did. And there's a very common thread between all the governors that did, if you look at their little parentheses letter next to their name. So it's a direct cause and effect. And this is not because Putin made gas cost more. It's because we printed off money and we weren't allowed to run our businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, at this point in time, I feel like you're doing a really great thing, helping people to be able to own homes and have stability and helping the economy and growth. And right now, like you said, the market is growing and it sucks. I mean, nobody saw COVID coming, and we have to do things differently. And what do you do?
Yeah, really at the end of the day, as I break this down, kind of go full circle with everything. What got us through COVID wasn't the fact that the tenants kept paying. It was the fact that we had a relationship with the tenants. They weren't just some guy we threw in a house. They are working towards this to be theirs. They know that I'm not going to undercut it from them. And I had a message to everyone who had one of their options expired during COVID, and essentially broke down to is, if they still want the house and they still want to be a part of it, we're going to figure out a way to extend it. I get that you might not have the extra 500 sitting around right now. We'll figure this out. This is the life we'll find a way moment right now. And because these kind of relationships had been established, we were able to make it work. And that, like I said, that's really what it came down to. The ones who ran away and hid and didn't want to have a relationship anymore, yeah, we evicted them basically as hard as we possibly could. But the other ones, the vast majority of them that wanted to just continue to have a dialogue and figure life out, we did.
Yeah. Relationships are so important. And I don't think people really get the gist of that. And that's the difference between those that stay and those that go. And like you said, how your business survived while others fell is because of what's involved in it and what makes it work. And it's all about that relationship and who's involved. And so I would like to talk a little bit now, because I know that we are coming up on time, because we've got some things that are going to be going on here in a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
Your baby and all, and I got another show going on. But I want to talk about the podcast too, and how you all relate the Lord into your business, and being a landlord, because no pun intended, but being a landlord and having the Lord in your business and those relationships, and how that all ties in to making this work. Can you bring that all together and wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is, in one word, it is the relationships that do that, and it's the implementation of the virtues that I went through here in the beginning of how can we figure out a way to make things fair for everyone involved. Understanding the basic rules of economics, that every customer wants to pay nothing and every landlord wants to charge infinity. So that's just a fact of life. So a little conflict gets resolved, but that's what economies are. That's what a market economy is. So we look at it and just try to treat everyone as equals. I am not jaded yet. 11 years of doing this, probably should have by now, that I still inherently trust someone that they'll do what they say they're going to do. I don't treat everything with, I'm going to get this house back in 3 months completely broken. I come in with the mentality that you guys are going to keep your word. And, it kind of just builds with a mutual trust. And it's not that there's one personality type that can do this and the other ones can't. It's effort. I mean, you have to learn how to go and try to become better at communicating people with everything else. And the Facebook is great for many things. This ain't one of them. Now, you cannot have a relationship through social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. No, you can't have any of them. What you can with is actually calling people. And that's one of the call to actions that I like to give people is start with someone that you know, but you wish you had a better relationship with. So maybe it's someone you only see at weddings and funerals, but you wish you hung out with them every once in a while. Just give that person a call. Again, not a tweet, not a text, but an actual call. And whatever relationship's in your life, everyone's able to identify one that's like, I just wish that was better right now, and call them. And yeah, that takes a little bit of courage, which would be the fortitude part of this discussion. But it's also the process of practicing better relationships makes you better at it. So it's something that we all can do in our individual personal lives that will spill over to us in businesses overall. And having conversations that can be challenging really do help you be better at everything else.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. It's all about relationships. And I was speaking with someone the other day, and they said to me, I never realized that having a relationship with Jesus was everything. They're like, I knew about Jesus, but I didn't know I needed a relationship with him. And that changed the game for them. And I'm like, absolutely, because when that's the center and everything else around you is falling apart, you can stay together. And I think that's what's done it for your business, because although all these other things have been going on, you've had faith at the center of it, and you've had us that as the foundation, knowing that you had something to lean on. And so that is awesome, and what you've been able to build upon. And it's so funny because I think about your name, and it's Rocky, and then this rock is what we stand on, right? And so things mean names mean something, and we have to understand what we're dealing with and what we're coming up against. And I think so many times we take things for granted of who we are and whose we are and what we're doing. And so I appreciate the fact that you came today and showed us who you are, what you
Well,
do,
I
and why
thank you
you
for
do it.
having me, for sure. Yes, thank you.
And so, as you continue on your journey, what is it that you foresee for your future, and what would you like for others to know more about based on what you do?
Yeah, so I mean, the way that we didn't get into the way I run the business, really, we got
Yeah,
into
go
the
ahead. Go ahead.
benefits
We
of,
still got more
but
time. We don't have to
the
wrap
the
up
the
yet. Go
way
ahead.
that I ask people to join us moving forward really is to just try the episode, just try the cast, listen to an episode. We come out once a week. It's Tuesdays. It's called Father and Joe. It's very straightforward in that regard, and just give it a try, because there obviously are specific episodes about this part of the Bible and that part of the Bible, but it's always tied to a pragmatic application we can put to our own lives. And it is something that we really do. We know it helps people. It wouldn't grow if it didn't. So we really, that's the request I would have of people who want to continue to come forward and to continue to grow with is to listen to the cast, give it a try. Because we do get into the specific parts about talking in depth about various issues. And there are also various moral conflicting issues. So on the one hand, the gospels are a gospel of life. It's about loving people and celebrating life. But on the other hand, halfway across the world, this one little crazy guy just sort of murdering people because he felt like it. How should we feel about that? That's a conflicting thought. Like, if this guy didn't exist, there'd be no war. But on the other hand, you're effectively rooting for this guy to die. So, like, what do we do about that?
Yeah.
So that's the type of conversations we've had. In lieu of more research about the vaccines, we've had conversations about how vaccines are actually made, with stem cell lines and stuff like that. We've gone into each of the virtues in depth multiple times. So there's a lot of different things that discuss that are applicable to everyone's life. But oftentimes people hear God and they think, well, that's different from the rest of my life. And as you said, it's the center. So most people kind of live their life with what's on fire right now and putting it out. So the example I give with that is if you think of like a tire, most people just live on the tread, just trying to go around, making sure that it'll be able to survive. It's not going to skid out in the ice. But what's really holding it together is the wheel and the axle. And the more you spend time on that, the better you'll be able to stop. Sure, you need the tread. I'm not discounting that. But if you actually sit and relax and think about it, you need to have the wheel there, because if it's not connected to anything, the tread is irrelevant. You're never going to go anywhere. So that's another call to action that I've given to people that works out very well, is just put yourself in complete screen shutdown, no electronics around you for just 10 minutes and just complete silence as you can make it. No bings from your phone, no iPad alerts, none of that. And just sit there for 10 minutes and just kind of see what happens. And people who do that normally come out in a better place overall. And that's not necessarily a religious thing. That's just a resetting of your mind, and it opens up an avenue to thinking and praying, but it's not necessarily takes you there either. So it's just a good starting point to put us in, to kind of reset ourselves and to put ourselves in a neutral state.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I think people focus so much on religion instead of focusing on centering that they miss that connection. And I think that what you talked about, I love the premise of your podcast, because when we are talking about all these things, I think people get so set on what they think about something instead of having an understanding about what something is. And so we can have an ideal of something, and we can have a thought, and we can have a belief of something, but what is the real truth of the matter? Really, let's talk about it, because how is something made? Why does something work? What is the reason behind this? And let's get an understanding of it, instead of just guessing or believing something to be true, instead of understanding why something is. And that is so great, because when we can open that up and have that dialect, we have better relationships. We're building better connections. And my whole thing is, I think about that all the time, when it's like, get knowledge, but get understanding.
Mm-hmm.
If we have better understanding, we can connect and bridge those gaps out there.
And on that note, and I promise I won't go on forever about
No, you're
this.
fine.
This is the problem with the current information age, is that you can pick any issue you want. And something that I thought I was never going to have to talk about again the rest of my life is the world round or flat. And you can find people that will adamantly say that the world is flat. And you can isolate yourself from not listening to anyone else and not wanting to discuss any other viewpoint. And the more and more people put themselves into more and more isolated groups, the more tension that comes between the groups. And the only way really to break that down is to intermingle with the group that you don't agree with. So you don't agree with the people who watch Fox, you don't agree with the people who watch CNN. Be around them more and you'll be better off. And that's a big part of life that we are missing now in the internet era, because you can go and hide in your bubble. Even if there's only 6 people in the world who agree with you, that's big enough to be a social group for an individual. And being in other groups and being willing to discuss other things, I think is a big part of it, because everyone's getting conditioned to only hear what they want to hear, and therefore only say what you think someone else wants to hear. It's by definition artificial and takes away from your own humanity at the end of the day, and your own thought process. So I would always invite people to actually turn your phones off and talk to someone next to you, than rather just live on the internet. Now, that being said, my podcast lives on the internet and there is values to it, but
Absolutely.
there's a big difference between reading data and having understanding, as you just mentioned there. And this isolation groups that we have really does perpetuate this problem. And if there's going to be a major problem in the future that doesn't revolve around economics, asterisks, it's going to be this. This is the social issue that we are going to have to fight for ongoing. That if we keep allowing ourselves to be separated into smaller and smaller groups, it always creates tension between the groups. and
Mhm.
inevitably leads to problems beyond measure.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that's just the fact of life.
Yeah. I was just thinking here. Yeah, just let's go be controversial. And I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna come here and say, go on this square. Now people are gonna question me. Well, maybe it is. Let's think about that. Like, I mean, you know, you can question whatever you want to, but you know what? Just let's keep the conversation going, people. Let's keep talking. Let's keep connecting. Because the more we talk, the more we can see that we're really not that different. But let's have communication that can be good and that can bring us together, not divisive, not separate us, but that can help us to be informed and make us more more loving, more caring, more kind.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it works. As you said, there's nothing special or different about me. That being said, I created a business that has a 97% fail rate in the first year, and I've had it lasting for over a decade and then some. And what really made a difference is all the stuff we just talked about. That's part of why Father and Joe was created, because I recognize that this is part of this. Let's try to share it with other people. And to try to deny that from your business and yourself as an individual, whether you're a business owner or manager or wherever you're at in that stage of life, you're going to hinder yourself. So it really, we've said it like 100 times, but there's no way to deny it. It comes down to relationships. And the best way to make better relationships is to practice with the ones that you already have. So if you have a bad relationship, you want to practice making it better, call up the person you have a bad relationship. If you are scared about entering this, just start with calling your mom. I mean, just wherever you're at, it's not going to be as scary as you making in your head almost always. And it's certainly worth doing that.
Absolutely. All right, Joe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Tell people how to find your podcast and how to come to you in Pennsylvania if they would like to be on.
Perfect. Like I said, you can find us. It's at Father and Joe. It says here on the screen. I'll send you guys a link as well, and it'll be right there. But we're on every single platform you can be on, and it's straightforward. Father and Joe.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We appreciate you for minding your business today. Remember, mindful intentions nurture and drive your business. And as always, you were created with a purpose. So go be great. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.